about right. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you started it in the manner that you loved. Anyway, let's get to the point today. This is Black British Woman's Voice. And in light of the fact that Valentine's Day is now but a few sweet weeks away, I know, I'm sorry, but you know, it's not that far and advertising will start. I'd like to do a vlog looking at the backward notion that black women are unattractive and unwanted by other races, or rather the genesis of this notion that was encouraged by a brittle study conducted by the dating site OK Cupid that forced the link between popularity and black women's attractiveness. So that's going to be my happy-go-lucky vlog for today. Now, bear with me as I adjust my glasses. In 2009, and updated again in 2014, a study was conducted by the dating site OK Cupid, which sought to look at the emailing habits and replying habits of its users so as to document any nuances, preferences, and other habits that would crop up. The types of emails, from what I can remember, the types of emails judged came in two categories. That of initial contact emails, which were emails sent first to initiate contact, and responding emails, which are emails sent in reply to initial contact emails. The methodology of the research was to view at least, I don't know how many, a handful, many cherry-picked profiles of people crossing different ages, genders, races, and social economic backgrounds. And the form of the research was mainly qualitative, not quantitative, which means the results were assessed on numbers and not opinions. For example, qualitative means that you report your findings as 10 people said they loved OK Cupid. But quantity, would be reported as out of 10 people, 4 people said that they used OK Cupid because it was free, 5 people said they used OK Cupid because they hoped to gain some companionship, and 1 person said they'd used OK Cupid because their friends found success on it. Hopefully that gives you context on the difference between quantitative and qualitative. However, if it doesn't, feel free to pause this vlog now and do a quick Google explaining the difference. It's not imperative, it's just if it's something that you'd want to investigate further, then go ahead and do that now. Now, I'm aware that this study conjured up a shitstorm in light of its results, namely that erroneous claims came into existence extolling that the end result of the study was proof that black women were unattractive. I noticed that the people basking in the sewage of these claims were white people and misogynoirs, so I left them to belch that stink because frankly, me being acquainted with the research papers and me being apt at pinpointing statistical spin meant that I was above addressing this calamitous misinterpretation. Also, given the fact that white women get tans for our skin colour, injections for our full lips, and artificial implants to gain the assets that come naturally to black women, you'd be moronic to believe that black women weren't enviously being viewed by other races in some kind of godlike reverence. I mean, it's there. I mean, the level of tans I've seen, you just would not believe. Who would go that far? Anyway, so today, I feel like using the few years that I worked in the market research field, where my job was to aggregate qualitative research and shore it up as results into report forms, plus my teeny tiny qualification in sociology, I thought I would use that as a modus to roundhouse this fiction. So, kicking off, about 8 and 4 years ago, OK Cupid did a study on whom was emailing and whom and replying to whom on their dating sites. And somehow black women emerged from the study with the shortest of straws. My guess is that this happened namely because the statistics of this research had been presented in a somewhat cool-shove light. Cool-shoving, and cool-shoving is a word I've made up, cool-shove spelt K-O-L-E-S-H-O-V by the way, is a tactic employed by advertisers whereby a series of images or words are put together to create a message or an impression that wasn't really there. For instance, if I were to say to you, the farmer wants a wife, then say to you that pigs are graceful and tender to the touch, then say to you the government has legalized bestiality, your first assumption will be that the farmer is now sexing that pig. Okay, let's just get away from that imagery. Now move this example of cool shove over to the OK Cupid study and see how OK Cupid aligned and presented their findings in such a way that was so cool shovian that it led people to misinterpret the findings and lay claim to the inaccurate belief that black women were universally viewed as unattractive. What? Anyway, glasses are doing my head in. So, to begin dismantling this assassination, let's firstly look at why black women were even joining this website. This particular website, which is OK Cupid. In the study, when black women were asked to rate black, Asian and white men, the magnificent sum of 70% of the black women questioned overwhelmingly rated black men as being in excess of 16% more attractive than any of the other race men on that website. This was markedly different in comparison to the micro 1% of attractiveness that they gave white men, and horrendously different in comparison to the 11 minus and the 6 minus they gave to other races of men. So basically, this sweeping amount of black women were joining the site purely to meet black men, because again, 70% of them said that black men were at least 16% more attractive than men of any other races on OK Cupid, and gave the other races minuses and 1%. And who would be sending initial contact emails or maintaining contact emails with men that they considered in their minuses? With me? Just tighten up these glasses. Now, of course, if 70% of black women are rating black men as more attractive than any other race, this naturally will leave a miserly 30% of black women on OK Cupid who were actively conversing or initiating conversations with men of other races. So let that sink in. Only 30% of black women were even bothering to initiate contact or maintain an email conversation with men outside of their race. And this is in sharp juxtaposition to the 70% of black women that said that black men were far more attractive. To further reinforce my assertion in regards to the validity of my theory about that 70% of black women coming onto that website for purely for black men, look to the same OK Cupid study that says in its own words that all the races of women studied had a preference for their own race, but that it was Latinos and Asian women that led the way extremely and exclusively in terms of chasing white men online, and not black women. So that statement further backs my comprehension that the bulk of black women on OK Cupid were looking primarily for black men, and that when and that when black men were being rejected, the rejection came largely in the form of black men. So the idea that black women were being rejected en masse by everyone was misleading, because 70% of black men weren't rooting for everyone, just black men. And at the end of the day, this 70% shows that in fact more black women were rejecting men of other races than vice versa. Does you get it? But now, let me further debunk even the idea that black men rejecting black women on OK Cupid was somehow significant or tells the full story. Yes, black men were passing over black women, but overwhelmingly it was for Latino women. And this is where OK Cupid's study disappears into a sinkhole again, because without realizing it, OK Cupid has been misleading in their comparison between Latinos and black women, in that it's farcically asserting that Latinos and black women are entirely two different races. In short, the study misses the point that Latinos are people of Spanish, South American and black descent. Even the description of a Latino in an encyclopedia asserts that present-day Latinos can't be defined by race but by culture. Air quotes, culture. So Latinos themselves come under a plethora of different racial guises. Some will look traditionally black with black, dark skin and African features, and some will possess more European features and whiter colouring. So are you saying that you can tell the difference between a black-looking Latino woman and an African American woman? Of course not. You couldn't possibly do that any more than you could tell the difference between a white Scottish woman to a white Irish woman. So if you're going to say that black women are unattractive to black men because they prefer Latinos, if we're going to go that direction, then the Latinos should be divided into subcategories of blackness and whiteness, or excluded altogether in order to achieve an accurate finding. Okay? And even if for the sake of the study you chose to keep the Latino category and the figures still came back the same, i.e. black men still preferred the Latinos over black women, then really that study would then spill it off into an entirely different meaning, because then it becomes a question as to whether black men are gravitating to the aesthetic of Latino women or the culture of Latino women. Anyway, just the way that I have to pause just to people to absorb it. Anyway, now coming back to the left over 30% of black women I touched on earlier, and this would be the 30% whom were writing initial contact emails and ongoing emails to men of other races, but were being left in the cold. except interestingly enough, Middle Eastern men who seem to really like black women, that they seem to shoot up. Now, this 30% is in no more an indicator of attraction than comparing night and day. And let me tell you why. Because according to the study, did you know who came in second in unattractiveness to black women? It was white women. The second least attractive women on the dating site OK Cupid out of 5 different races of women were white women. White women came in as 4th down the list from the Latinos, Asians, and South Pacific women. Then again, according to the study, black, white, and Asian men preferred sending initial contact emails to and having ongoing correspondences with. Now, in a society where white women are lauded by the media and the film industry as beauty personified and as the ultimate accolade of procurement, wouldn't it have made more sense for white women on OK Cupid to be sent more initial contact emails and to be responded to the most? Wouldn't it have made more sense for white women to be the number 1s and not the number 4s on the most attractive and desired list? So if, despite living in a world where the media and Hollywood relentlessly promote white women as the epitome of femininity and beauty, they are still ranked this low, why am I supposed to believe that OK Cupid somehow mirrors what men of different ethnicities in the real world actually think of black women's attractiveness? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that despite surrounded by numerous billboards that market and idolized white female beauty, that they still didn't measure up in this OK Cupid study. Why am I expected to believe that the reason that 30% of black women emailing men of other races were not being responded to was simply because they were black? After all, black women have no such propagandist media or Hollywood promoting them, yet both black women and white women stand shoulder to shoulder in the so-called unattractive states. In this study anyway. So, coming back to the Kuleshov effect I mentioned earlier, the study also says that black women are the chief responders to initial contact emails, i.e. when men from all races wrote to black women, they were very polite and would respond back. Polite, see, quotes, and respond back. But that white men are the worst responders, i.e. when people write to them, the white men rarely respond back. Now, presenting these findings side by side, the Kuleshov effect kicks in again, because this insidiously but falsely implies that the so-called unpopular black women are the ones writing to white men and getting ignored, when in reality, it's the Latinos and the Asians exclusively chasing white men whom were being ignored. It also brushes under the carpet the fact that responding isn't tantamount to dating anyway, because again, 70% of black women rated black men as far more attractive. In other words, 70% of black men would much prefer black men, and although polite enough to respond, remember the study theorized that black women were simply polite responders, even though they were polite enough to respond, they wouldn't actually touch these other barges with a barge pole. That's probably the 30% that's doing that. But then again, I question the entirety of this study for its other flaws and suspicious contradictions. For instance, one of the things it says is that a high number of Asians and Latino women exclusively chase white men, as I said earlier on. But then conversely goes on to say that when white men do decide to write or respond to Latino and Asian women, these same women apparently fail to write back to them. All communication just stops to the white men that they're coveting. The stats in the study said that only 34% of these Latino and Asian women were responding back to the white men that had decided to respond to them. That just doesn't make any sense again. Not to me anyway, not in any way, especially when you say that white men respond the least. Surely it would mean that finally getting a response from the white men, the Asians and Latinos, that the Asians and Latinos are converted, desiring, there'd be a bullseye moment and a flurry of conversation would ensue. You'd think so. And lastly, what I also found jarring about this study is the faux confusion that OK Cupid expressed when they wrote that their study puzzled them, because there was a mismatch between people questioning about their attitude towards interracial relationships to the fact that they would prefer not to be in one. Now, if this is now this is when you can tell the OK Cupid that OK Cupid was white supremacy on steroids, because if they had even had one black person on this research team doing the study, they would know that there was no confusion there. It was simply a matter of, you do you, but not for me, thanks. It doesn't specifically have to mean that people in the study were being secretly racist. It was more than likely just a matter of choice. Now, I know with that last statement there is complications, because we know what white people are when it comes to wanting to be with other white people, but sticking with this, it's just a matter of choice. Anyway, any comments, drop them below. This is One Black British Woman's Voice, and I'm out.